Hello and welcome back to Apolitical. Thanks for tuning in once again. If you're new, welcome. Today we are sitting down with another city council candidate. His name is Jereme Sharpe, and he's running for post 1 at large, which, by the way, is a citywide position, so he will be on every Atlanta resident's ballot come November 2nd. He has a real estate background, so of course we discuss his thoughts on housing here in the city, as well as transportation. We also discuss his thoughts on the uptick in crime at Lenox Mall, as well as his goal to achieve reparations for Black Atlantans at a local level. It was a great discussion. I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Thanks again to Jereme for reaching out and coming in to talk. Coming right up is our interview with City Council Post 1 at Large candidate Jereme Sharpe. Stay tuned. All right, so I am here with Jereme Sharpe. Jereme is a candidate for City Council for the Post 1 at Large seat. Jereme, thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate you coming to Apolitical.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Like, really and truly, this is awesome.
I was excited to get you in here. So I'll just start by asking a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Gwinnett County,
Okay.
The north side. My family, from my mom's side, is from Liberty City, Dade County, 305. And my dad, he's from the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
So that's where all they're by way of Grenada. So half Grenadian, half African-American, mom from Liberty City. That's where I was born also. So most of my family is still in Liberty City. A lot of them do still live on the north side, also in Gwinnett County.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up. That's where I went to high school also.
Gotcha. Northside guys. Shout out to the Migos.
You know what? I actually went to the high school that the Migos went to. So Berkmar for a little bit, but I also went to Brookwood High School. So yeah, like two completely different schools, but both in Gwinnett County, probably less than, 4 or 5 miles apart from one another.
Yeah. What's the difference? Because I don't get up to Gwinnett much. What was it like growing up there?
So, great question. So Gwinnett is very, I would say, diverse, really and truly, even when like the census comes out and says like, oh, Gwinnett County is one of the most diverse counties. It really is. So I went to Brookwood, which at that time, what I would say was maybe 95% white.
Okay.
And then Berkmar was, I would say, maybe 80% black. And they're just two different schools. And even like socioeconomically, when I was in 3rd grade, I was zoned to the Berkmar neighborhood. And then we somehow got rezoned to go to Brookwood. So we lived in a $90,000 house. But then we were now being bussed over the train tracks to go to school with everybody that had $5,000 to $1 million houses.
Wow.
So my neighborhood was very diverse, black, Hispanic, everything. But the school that we went to at Brookwood was pretty much all white. So my upbringing was partially that, I would say. It was just all I really knew were to be around white people. I was at their birthday parties, spending the night with them, playing. And it wasn't necessarily a thing or a thought, really. And I would say partially because my parents worked a lot. Like my earliest memory was my mom and her twin sister. They both worked as store managers at KFC. And I remember being 5, 4, 6 years old in the back of KFC's as my mom was like basting chicken and like allowing the truck to come in to unload. So we worked a lot. That's all we knew. Then when I was maybe like 10, my dad went to prison, and then my mom lost her job along with her twin sister. It was like the same franchise or something like that. And they started cleaning buildings, and me and my cousins, we basically joined them. Like we were the labor. So very much a part of my childhood. I would tell people like, do you remember that movie, this one? Like, I don't remember anything about my childhood, but really going to school.
Yeah.
Coming home, going to clean a building.
Working.
And that was my childhood up until I was maybe 14 or 15 when I got my first job at Kroger. And I was still working. By that time, I'm like grown. I'm making my own money. I know like money does not grow on trees. Like you must work for it. So that was my upbringing. I didn't really see movies or people like, oh, nah, I didn't do any of that. I couldn't tell you a movie right now.
Right.
Like, or a character.
You said you grew up not really noticing the difference between when you like going to the all white school. When did you start? When would you say that you started noticing those differences, those natural differences that kind of come with race and socioeconomic status?
Well, definitely. So somewhere in like maybe 10th or 11th grade, I ended up back at Berkmar. Life comes full circle. We ended up like getting like evicted from like our house, and then we moved and all that type of stuff. So we ended up back in the Berkmar district. So that was maybe 11th grade is when I realized that I would even start with like resources between two different schools within the same county are drastically different. The classes, I remember at Brookwood, there was like technical drafting and architectural drafting. And at Berkmar, there just was not that. It did not exist. So it was realizing first the difference in resources. And then after that, it was really more so realizing just, okay, looking around like, whoa, this school is very different.
Right.
Like even the way things go, the administration is very different. The rules seem to be very different. So that's when I noticed it. But when I really noticed it was 2008. I want to say it was the year that Obama got elected. And I was at Georgia Southern University.
Okay.
And I remember that night. And like, it was crazy. Like, all like the black people, the white people, the next day, there was this big like divide in the campus. Like you could like feel it, you could see it. Black people were angry at white people, and it was like, whoa, this is real.
Yeah. Like
there is a difference that exists. And I think it was that moment, really above all the moments, that made me realize like, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah. So you're a independent consultant. I've read you worked in real estate. Kind of explain your background professionally, after high school, after graduating with it, and what has kind of led you to this point in wanting to seek local office.
Yeah, okay. Where do I start? Went to Georgia Southern, transferred to Georgia State because I hated Georgia Southern. It was like, okay, no way I'm going to be down here. Wanted to go to a city school. Me and my best friend Brittany transferred to Georgia State.
Nice. We should have someone to do it with.
What was it? Oh yeah.
Transferring sucks.
We came together. We moved to like our first apartment in Castleberry Hill, like still my favorite neighborhood in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So moved there, and then what I like to say is like life happens. A lot of things happen. I was hopping and bopping and having a good time in Atlanta, and just life comes at you fast. When that happened, I ended up like losing my job at Carol's Daughter. I got fired from my job at T-Mobile because the commuter bus couldn't get me out to Arbor Place Mall in Douglasville in time. It would take like 2 hours to get there. So from there, I literally hiked it up and I moved to New York City. My thought process was I want to go somewhere that's big. I want to go somewhere that's fast, and I wanted to go somewhere that was progressive. That was my big thing. Like, I want to make progress.
Right.
So I left. Brittany transferred back to Georgia Southern, where she ended up finishing. I went to New York, and I was maybe 21, 22 at that time. Had no idea what I was going to do when I got there. Was on a train, heard some people talking about, like, real estate, got on my phone that second. Somehow Googled real estate. There was a class for like $300, and it was like, you can finish class in 2.5 weeks. I'm like, real estate class, 2 weeks, $1 million listing, let's go.
Right.
So paid for my class, went like every morning. It was like from like 8 to 5. Did that in like 2.5 weeks, took the test, and then somehow ended up with this like really cool real estate firm in Soho, the shopping district. I don't even know how. I think like my realtor, when I was looking for an apartment, he was there. So I ended up at a really great real estate firm, and that's when I got started in real estate. So I ended up going there, ended up doing real estate rentals, sales, affordable housing, then ended up working with a lot of the homeless population to get them also into housing. So I've really started a real estate firm, ran a real estate firm, so really worked across the spectrum, I would say, during my time in New York City when it came to real estate. So even when I talk about housing, I really talk about housing in a whole different way. I've also been homeless. Maybe we'll talk about that, but that I've like lived in the SRO, I've lived on trains, I've stood in lines, in soup kitchens, like I've done that. So I like to tell people I know every aspect of housing, from being unhoused to selling a $1 million listing. I've really been there.
Yeah. It's obviously a huge issue this election cycle, affordable and equitable housing. How do you think your experiences have shaped your views on housing, and what's your housing strategy if you're elected into office?
Yeah, so I think that housing is like a continuum. And there are some people that are at this phase of being unsheltered. There are some people at a phase where they're just seeking out like an affordable rental. Some people are ready for home ownership. Some people just want more. They're ready for their second, third condo. Everybody is at a different stage in their real estate, I would say, life or this continuum that's there. So I think one, it's knowing that, and then two, it's like, well, how do we fix it? And I always like to look at housing or fixing housing as kind of a toolbox. So you have this toolbox, and in the toolbox, there are maybe about a dozen to maybe 15 different housing tools that are in that box. And you have a tool for rezoning. There's another housing tool for giving people over the age of, let's say, 65, freezing their property taxes. There's another tool that's maybe in that box that talks about every new building that's built has to have 20% of the units that are at a. So there's multiple tools. So I think it's important to, one, know that each of those tools exist, know how to use those tools, and most importantly, know when and where to use those tools. What we've seen recently is this swath rezoning. They pulled out the rezoning tool on us, and they did it almost across the city. With Atlanta, it's interesting because when we say we have 242 neighborhoods, we really do. And they're so unique. The people, the culture, the topography that's in each of these neighborhoods, the build of the architecture. Candler Park's a great example where it's bungalows mostly. Where your Buckhead neighborhoods, their setbacks from the street are a lot further. So when we talk about like this rezoning tool, it's okay, we know how to use it, but are we using it in the right places is the question right now. Many neighborhoods will not be able to handle the type of rezoning that we're pitching to them right now. It's too dense for them. They won't. The infrastructure and the roads won't be able to handle that many people in that particular neighborhood or area. There's no transportation plan either. So I think going back to the question, I think what do we do? We have to know what are the tools that we have, and we have to know how they work, when to use them, and where to use them. Just a great example. I think that a neighborhood like West End Mall, for a great example, great. That needs to be rezoned, in particular that parcel right there, to be high density, mixed use. But I'm not going to say that 2 streets over, where there's traditionally been single family homes, that needs to be upzoned. Gotcha. I'm not too sure about that.
Gotcha. You are, I don't want to say only, but probably the only candidate in all of the elections who doesn't own a car. And you use public transportation daily. Is that something you kind of picked up in New York, or you always kind of been like that? Because we love our cars down here.
Right. So when I moved with Brittany, back to Brittany in Castleberry Hill, I had a car, and my transmission went out. And at that moment, don't even know the cost, don't even care. I was not replacing it. Right. And at that time, I didn't have a car. I was working at Carol's daughter at Lenox Mall. So I was walking down Peter Street to Garnett Station, got tired of Garnett Station because it was too dark and grimy, so I started walking up to 5 Point Station. So, and then I would take it to Lenox Mall, open my store, close my store at Carol's daughter, come back home. So from there, that was it. So I actually started my car-free journey in Atlanta back in maybe 2010, not by choice, by force. Right. And I was very thankful that I did live in Castleberry Hill and I was so close to those train stations. So it felt very normal, actually. So when I got to New York, obviously I was already acquainted with transportation from Atlanta, really. And from there, it just stuck with me. That's when I just realized I don't want a car. Like, I don't need a car. Like, even now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, get me out of this car. Like, get me out of it fast enough. Right. But yeah, that's where the journey really started but from there, it was I didn't realize, how environmentally friendly it was. I had no idea. I had no idea about like walkability and all that type of stuff. I think just inherently being in New York City and having to do it while I was here, it became regular. But I respect both. There's no war on cars for me.
Yeah.
But I do know that we need to do a better job with our alternative transportation. That's without a doubt.
Yeah. Like you said, every neighborhood in Atlanta is a lot different. Do you see Atlanta ever being able to become kind of like the public transport, biker friendly city?
I think some parts.
Yeah.
I think that what it may come down to is kind of a Buckhead, and then you have your in-towners, like I say, like everything inside of the Beltline would maybe be like more in town.
Mm-hmm.
Then you still have your Southwest, and I think like in town, yeah, bike lanes, bus lanes galore everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that, but it will be very much and should be very much up to every community. I think that we will still have major connectors, of course, that we will need to connect you from one community to the other community. But I do think, and I think it should very much be up to each of those different communities and neighborhoods. And I think that's what it will end up looking like.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about security in Buckhead, specifically around the Lenox Mall area. Do you have any type of plan or strategy to address that issue?
So I will give a kind of a story. So I spent a lot of time on the Lenox Road corridor in particular.
Yeah.
And there was a young lady, and she came and she was saying that she noticed ever since the bridge, the 85 bridge fell where a lot of homeless people were, that from there, a lot of them, she felt that many of them have migrated up to the Lenox area more so, which kind of makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
They were you're referring to the houseless people who used to live
right under the bridge.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they migrated, and for her, and what they've noticed, at least along the Lenox Road corridor, is not particularly crime, but a lot more homeless people are going under and over their gates and staying in the back of their clubhouses or by their pools. So that is very much real.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, and I get all the emails on that regularly.
Yeah.
So I would say that I think I do believe that crime has spread throughout the city of Atlanta more. I don't necessarily think that, and this is probably people go, oh, you're so dumb for saying that is like risen. I think like there's comparatively, I would say, I think it's still not as bad as it's portrayed, I would say. But I will say that, has it spread?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And has that caused people in Buckhead and in the northeast side of town to yell louder? Absolutely. And I think many of those cries are coming because in a lot of those neighborhoods, there's so much focus on like neighborhood pride.
Yeah.
And the neighborhood being, as long as my neighborhood is fine, everything outside of my neighborhood can fall to shit even.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily against it. And I think what's happened now is that the crime is in the neighborhood now, and it's red alert. And that is, people's like, well, why is that your only issue? Well, for them, that is their only issue for them, because their lifestyle, they have clean roads already. They don't have potholes already. So now this one thing that we've all experienced throughout the city, it is the only thing for them that is ruining their perfect neighborhood. So it's a red flag. It's red alert. It is the priority on that side of town.
Right.
And I think there has to be some type of level of understanding for that. But on the flip side, I say that there has to be a level of understanding for those that have historically been harassed by the police, that have historically had bad experiences with law enforcement, and why their response is to defund, why their response is to say no cop city. I get it. It depends on your life experience and where that's going to put you. So me running citywide, as I said kind of maybe before, it was, I'm not looking to balance conflicting interests. I'm looking to find a way of compromise between, to be honest, the Northeast and the Southwest, and now the in-towners.
Right. Yeah. Finding that compromise, I think. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's a struggle because it's been an issue for so long, and it's something people feel passionately about. I read in a article that one of the things that inspired you to run for office is that you noticed that in Illinois they were
Oh my gosh,
offering
yes.
reparations,
Yes.
and that caught my attention. Do you think that's actually possible here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So like glad you said. So what really said like I'm running today, like this is it, was I read the article that came out of Evanston, Illinois, didn't realize how close to Chicago it was. And I was like, oh my God, this is right outside of Chicago. And it just clicked in my mind right at that second was like reparations may or may not get done on a state level, on a federal level, but they can and will get done on a city level. And I think that's where it makes the most sense. Every city is different. Some cities will want reparations. Some cities won't. Some cities really need it.
Right, true.
It depends. So I said it's going to be on the city to map out what reparations looks like for their citizens. And then it's going to be for the state and for the federal government just to back that.
Yeah.
Not for them to come up with their own thing, because from their angle, like they don't want to spend they want to spend as least money as possible.
Right.
So if every city wants to opt in and some cities don't, then great, let's do it that way.
Yeah.
And I think even reparations, it looks very different. I'm not against cash reparations, but I think when I talk about reparations, it looks like in 3 specific areas, and that's housing, transportation, also business. So that's giving people grants or direct payments so that they can put down on a home to buy, or if they're renting and they need rental payments right now because they don't want to buy, or maybe they're not in the position to buy. But I think it's giving them direct compensation for that, so that, and then also when it comes to a business, okay, you need to open a business, you need a business loan. Okay, cool. Here's the fund, come dip into it, boom, start your business. And same thing with transportation. Well, no matter what type of wheels, you want to buy an electric bike, you want to get a car, here's the down payment for it. And the idea there is that what I've noticed is that when people with money are investing into their children or into their family, they're doing so in a way that's setting them up for long-term success and building wealth. Yeah. And I think as a city, that's what we also do. If we're going to do reparations, we do it in a way that ensures that wealth is being built and progress is being made. And I think that's why I look in those 3 areas instead of cash. With cash, there comes a lot of education that's needed with that, and don't with home ownership and transportation and business does too. But I think with cash, there comes a lot more education on where to do it, how to do it, can you invest it. I know you give me cash all the time. Baby got bills to pay, mama got bills to pay. I'm not too sure if me personally, I'm gonna make it around to doing what I'm supposed to do with it. I got a lot of other stuff going on with people. So that's in my Black life, I like to say. Yeah. And I think everybody's very different, but I think that if you put housing, transportation, and business in front of me, I'm not going to turn it down. Right. I'm going to definitely take it and run with it.
Good point. Well said. Well, thank you, Jereme, again for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, could you please tell our listeners where they can keep up with your campaign?
Yeah, so my website is probably where you can find everything. If you want to know, like, housing, what does he think about education? What does he think about transportation? It is all there, like, line by line. So that is Sharpe, that's my last name, and that has an E at the end, SHARPE.vote. And all of the social media handles are pretty similar. It's either going to be Vote Sharpe or Sharpe Vote. Either way, just if you type in Sharpe, SHARPE, City Council Atlanta, you are bound to find it, and especially these days.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Sharpe, again for coming in, and wishing you all the best of luck on your campaign.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.